Welcome to Scare Archive. Tonight, we're venturing into the chilling realm of macabre pacts with 3 unsettling true accounts. These stories are not for the faint of heart, so if you're sensitive to disturbing content, you might want to proceed with caution. Otherwise, prepare yourselves because these tales will haunt your thoughts. All right, so this story, it's hard to talk about. Really hard. Sometimes even my closest friends, they look at me blankly, like they don't quite believe it. Or maybe they can't believe it. But I promise you, every single word of this is true. Every single word. And it almost cost me everything. This happened when I must have been 15, maybe 16. It was a really tricky time for me, you know? My dad, he was in a job where we moved around a lot, like a lot. Every year or two, sometimes less. New city, new school, new everything. And this particular move, it hit me hard. We just landed in this new place. It was a beautiful town, outwardly. Lots of big houses, fancy schools. But I was so lost. I missed my old friends, my old life. And high school, man, that's tough enough without being the perpetually new kid, right? So I'm in high school, trying to find my place. Just a week has passed. I barely knew anyone. And then this girl, she was in some of my classes. Let's call her Olivia. She seemed nice, popular. And one day, out of the blue, she invites me to a party at her house. A party! You can imagine how excited I was. Like, finally, a chance to really connect with people, to feel less like an alien. I was so excited. Looking back now, with the benefit of hindsight, of course, I see how it really was. I was the perfect target. The new girl. No local friends, a new face, completely unknown, with no roots to speak of. An easy target. That's how I was. And Olivia, she came from serious money, like old money. Her family had one of those sprawling estates outside of town, you know? The kind you only see in movies. My family, we were comfortable. Sure, we could afford the private school tuition, but Olivia's family, they were on a whole other level of wealth. And that detail, believe me, it matters. It matters a lot. So, the night of the party comes. It was a Saturday. Around 7:30 p.m., my mom dropped me off at Olivia's gate. It was huge, wrought iron, opened automatically, super intimidating. My mom told me she'd be back at 11 p.m. sharp. No cell phones back then, obviously, so she even wrote down the house's landline number for me, just in case. I walked up to the front door, this huge, ornate thing, and Olivia met me with this really warm, almost too warm smile. She pulled me inside, introduced me to a few people. The house was amazing, huge, full of kids, music playing, but not too loud. Everything seemed normal, like any other high school party. A few minutes after I arrived, Olivia came over to me. She was holding a tall glass, something brightly colored with a straw. "Here," she said, her voice sugary sweet, "I made this just for you. It's a special non-alcoholic cocktail. My parents are really strict, you know? No alcohol allowed at my parties, so this is just for you." I was hesitant. I didn't drink, not even a sip. My parents were strict too, and I was genuinely a good kid. But she was so insistent, so friendly. And it looked like juice, so stupidly, I took a sip. Then another. And then I drank most of it. And this is where I swear to God, pure luck, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, kicked in. Within, I'm telling you, 10 minutes of finishing that drink, I started to feel off, really off. My stomach lurched, a cold sweat broke out. I thought, oh my God, it is alcohol. She lied. I'm gonna be in so much trouble. So I did the only thing I could think of. I ran to the nearest bathroom. Thank God it was unoccupied. And I vomited everything, every last drop of that weird sweet liquid. I purged it all. And I believe with every fiber of my being that saved my life. I cleaned myself up, splashed water on my face. I was still feeling a little woozy, a little lightheaded, but the nausea had passed. I went back out to the living room, found a quiet spot on a couch, and just slumped there. And that's the last thing I remember. Pure blackness, an instantaneous, complete blackout, like someone flipped a switch. When I woke up, I was somewhere else, completely somewhere else. My eyes flooded open. I was lying on something hard, wood, rough wood. I looked around. I was in a cabin, a small, rustic cabin, all made of wood. And there were huge glass windows stretching from floor to ceiling, looking out onto nothing but dense forest. Trees, just endless trees. Panic. It hit me like a physical blow. Where was I? How did I get here? This wasn't Blair's house. This wasn't anywhere I knew. My first thought, my desperate, pleading thought was, this is a dream. This has to be a dream, a lucid dream. But the cold, hard reality of the wooden table beneath me, the smell of pine, the utter silence outside, it wasn't a dream. This was terrifyingly, brutally real. Someone had brought me here. Someone had taken me. And they had drugged me. That drink. Oh God, that drink. I wasn't tied up. That was the first thing I noticed. I could move. Slowly, cautiously, I sat up. I was on a sort of wooden bench or table in the center of the room. My clothes were neatly folded beside me. My jeans, my t-shirt, everything. I quickly, frantically pulled them on. I had to get out. I had to. I rushed to the cabin door. It was heavy, wooden. I grabbed the handle and it was unlocked. Unlocked. This was the strangest part. Why? Why leave it unlocked? Then it hit me. They must have thought the drug worked completely. They must have thought I was out cold for hours. They weren't expecting me to wake up. Not like this. Not so soon. I pushed the door open, stepped out into the crisp, cool air. The forest stretched out, endless. A single, narrow dirt road wound through the trees, leading off into the distance. I looked back at the cabin. It looked innocent, but I knew better. I knew what had just happened in there, or almost happened. I had a choice: walk down that road, exposed, or dive into the dense woods. I thought fast. The road was a trap. It led somewhere, and those people, whoever they were, they would be coming back. They had to be. So I veered off. I plunged into the forest, staying close to the road, but hidden by the trees. I kept it in sight, knowing it had to lead to civilization eventually. I walked and walked and walked. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, every shadow. I jumped. My blood ran cold again and again. I kept glancing back, expecting to see someone, something. I had no idea how long I'd been out. Hours? Days? The sun was starting to rise. Then, about 5 minutes after I left the cabin clearing, as I was still moving through the trees parallel to the road, I heard them. Headlights. 3 cars. Big, dark SUVs. They sped past on the dirt road, heading straight for the cabin. I ducked down, pressed myself against the thick tree trunk, my heart in my throat. I couldn't see faces, but I knew, I just knew, those were the people, coming for me. I just kept walking, and walking. The sun rose higher, my legs ached, my throat was dry. Finally, I saw it. The edge of the forest, and beyond it, signs of human life. A farmhouse, a fence. I stumbled out onto a paved road, exhausted, terrified, but alive. I walked the rest of the way home. It was around 8 a.m. when I finally staggered through our front door. My mom, she was hysterical. She'd been calling Olivia's house all night, over and over, no answer. She went to pick me up at 11 p.m. and the house was dark, empty, like no party had ever happened. The police, when she called, just said, "It's a party, ma'am. Teenagers, wait 48 hours." She and my dad had been out searching all night, driving every road, calling every number they knew. When I finally, trembling, recounted what happened, my dad, he was furious. He wanted to go straight to the police. But my mom, she was more cautious. Olivia's family, they were powerful. They had connections. They knew people. We were new in town. My parents were scared. Scared of what could happen if we pushed it. Scared of what those people were capable of. So we didn't go to the police. We made a silent pact of our own to keep it quiet, to survive. Monday morning, I went back to school. I saw Olivia in the hallway. Our eyes met just for a second, and she looked right through me, like she'd never seen me before in her life. Not a flicker of recognition, nothing. She just turned and walked away. I spent another year at that school. It was the longest year of my life. Every day I felt eyes on me. Every stranger, every shadow, every car that drove by too slowly, I jumped. I felt like I was being watched, like they were waiting for another chance. It was a constant, suffocating fear. And the relief when my dad finally got transferred back to our old city, it was immense. Like I could finally breathe again. I still don't know what they wanted from me. I believe it was for some kind of ritual, because I've heard stories of similar occurrences. But I know I barely escaped from something indescribably dark. And I'll never forget the taste of that sweet and poisoned drink, or the feel of that rough wooden table, or the terrifying silence of that forest. Okay, so look, I've hesitated to even send this in. I really have. Because when you tell a story like this, people immediately jump to conclusions. They say, call the police, get help. But you just can't. Some things are just better left untouched, left alone. And once you hear what happened, you'll understand why. You really will. This all went down years ago. It was around 9 p.m. A dark night, not a cloud in the sky, just dark. Me and my two friends, we'll call them Maya and Chloe, we were all roughly the same age, late teens, early 20s. We'd just been at the local bar, not a fancy place, just the old mill down the road. We'd been shooting some pool, having a few drinks, nothing crazy, just unwinding. In our little town, everyone knew everyone. Crime? Practically non-existent. We felt safe. We felt completely, utterly safe. Which is why what happened next was so utterly jarring. We were walking home, just chatting, laughing, the usual stuff. The road was quiet, trees lining the sides, fields stretching out beyond. And then, right there, right in front of us, a goat. But this was no ordinary goat. No, it wasn't. This goat, it was walking on two legs, like a human. It was tall, taller than any goat I've ever seen. Its fur was black, pitch black, like a void. And its eyes, they glowed, a sinister blood red. They just burned. And it walked with this unnerving calm, so casual, so normal, as if walking on two legs with glowing red eyes was just what it did every day. I remember thinking, what? What am I seeing? Am I drunk? But I wasn't. We weren't. We'd had a few drinks, sure, but we were completely coherent. Maya, she gasped. Chloe, she just froze, her mouth agape. We all saw it. We all saw it. This thing. This goat. And then, in a moment of, I don't know what it was. Curiosity? Stupidity? Some kind of insane magnetic pull. We decided to follow it. We decided to follow a bipedal, red-eyed black goat into the darkness. Just typing that out sounds insane. But we did. It led us. It just kept walking, and we followed. It took us across this huge pasture. You know, just open land, grass. It was enormous. I'd say nearly a mile, maybe even more. Just across this wide open field. The goat, it didn't seem to notice us. Or maybe it did. Maybe it knew. Maybe it was leading us. It just kept moving, steady, purposeful. And we, like hypnotized idiots, just kept putting one foot in front of the other. We reached the end of the pasture, and there it was, the forest. Not just a few trees, a dense, thick patch of woods. It was always dark in there, even in daylight. And at night, it was a black maw. A little voice, deep in my gut, screaming, turn back right now, don't go in there. But something else, something stronger, it just pushed me forward. It pushed all of us forward, and we walked. As soon as we stepped past that tree line, the air, it changed. It didn't just get colder, it got heavier, thicker, like it was pressing down on you. Every step felt like wading through something viscous. It felt wrong. I know that sounds cliche, but it truly did. Everything felt wrong. Up until that point, despite the weird goat, it was still odd but not threatening. But now, in the woods, it was different. It was oppressive, sinister. We kept going. The goat was still ahead of us, just walking. And after about, I'd say 200 yards, maybe a bit more, we saw it. A light, a faint light deep within the trees. And you could see it so clearly because the forest at night is just black. Any light, even a tiny glow, it just creates this weird bright hole in the darkness. One of my friends, Maya, she suddenly grabbed my arm. Her hand was cold. She whispered, I think we should go back. We have a story now, right? We don't need to follow it anymore. Let's go back. And Chloe nodded. But something in me, something just snapped. A stubbornness, a dark curiosity. I heard myself say, and even now, I still think about this because it's so unlike me. I'm usually so cautious, so fearful. If you two want to go back, go, but I'm gonna keep going. My friends, bless them, they looked at each other, looked at me. They were scared, I could see it, but they were more scared to leave me alone. So they stayed, and we, the three of us, we kept following that goat. It just kept walking, didn't look back, didn't stop, and we just followed until we reached it, the clearing. And it was exactly like those things you hear about, the stories, the videos you see online. It was a perfect clearing, a circle. And in the center, there was this large cloth, red, like a deep blood red. It looked like one of those net-like blankets, you know, the kind people take to the beach to lie on. It was spread out on the ground. And around it, this is where it gets really, really disturbing. There was fire, not from a bonfire, not from torches, not from candles, no. The fire seemed to be sprouting directly from the ground, like the earth itself was on fire, just licking flames in a perfect circle around the red cloth. It was so bizarre, unnatural. And surrounding that fiery circle were people, maybe 10, maybe 15. It was hard to tell in the flickering light. They were all wearing these dark robes, hooded. They covered them from head to toe. You couldn't see their faces, nothing, just their eyes glinting in the firelight, like those robes you see in cult movies, or, some religious garments where only the eyes are visible. It was chilling. And then, the goat, our goat, it walked straight into the clearing. And the moment it stepped onto that red cloth, it was like a god had arrived. I swear to you, every single one of those robed figures, they knelt instantly, and they bowed deeply, their heads almost touching the ground. They stayed like that, bowing like they were worshiping. And we, Maya, Chloe, and I, we just stood there, hidden in the trees, watching, completely, utterly frozen. And then, just as they were all bowed down and the center of the clearing was clear, the goat moved. It walked right to the center of the red cloth. And because everyone was bowed, we could see it clearly. We could see what was on the cloth, what they were bowing to. Wrapped up. Something wrapped up in the center of the red cloth. It was a human figure. Small, very small, wrapped tightly in white linen. So tightly wrapped you couldn't make out any features. Just the distinct shape of a baby. A tiny, tiny baby, lying there, motionless. Then the robed figures started to chant, a low, guttural sound. Not words I recognized, just ancient, disturbing sounds. It filled the clearing, surrounded by the unnatural fire. And the goat, it stood over the wrapped figure, just stood there, red eyes burning. And then, one of the robed figures, the one closest to the child, reached out, and with a single swift motion, they plunged the blade down, right into the center of that little wrapped figure. That was it. That was the moment. My brain, it broke. It clicked. Run. That's all I heard. Run. We turned. We ran. Faster than we'd ever run in our lives. We didn't look back. Didn't dare to. We ran until our lungs burned, until our legs gave out. We ran until we were back on the paved road, under the distant streetlights, gasping, shaking, crying. We never spoke of it again. Not to each other, not to anyone. Not really. But a few days later, the news. My mom was watching the local news, and there it was. A report. A missing child. A baby. A family, heartbroken, desperate, in a town not too far from ours. A little girl, about 6 months old, gone from her crib. No signs of forced entry, just gone. And we knew in our guts, this was it. This was her. We talked about going to the police, Maya, Chloe, and I. We talked for hours, but what would we say? We followed a bipedal, red-eyed goat into the woods, saw a ritual with fire coming from the ground, and a baby being sacrificed by hooded figures. They'd laugh us out of the station, or worse, they'd think we were crazy or involved. And that family, the robed figures, they seemed so powerful, so protected. We saw what they were capable of. We were just kids. We didn't know what to do. So we didn't. We kept silent. We buried it. We buried that night deep down. We never spoke of it again. Not truly. Not the whole thing. I've only told this story in hushed whispers, maybe once or twice in my life, because what we saw, it changed us. It showed us that there are things in this world, deep in those hidden woods, far beyond our understanding. I need to tell you this properly because it's important you understand. This wasn't some dream. This wasn't a childish fantasy. This was real. And my father, a man as grounded as the earth itself, saw it too. What we witnessed that night, it became the silent anchor dragging our family down into a pool of shared terror. You see, my family, we've always been tied to the land. Generations of us, farmers through and through. We didn't own some small patch of land, no. Our family farm, specifically our apple orchard, it wasn't just a few trees. It was vast, sprawling, miles and miles of neat rows of apple trees, stretching further than the eye could see, then fading into dense, untamed thickets on the periphery. This land, it provided for us. It was our lifeblood, literally. Every apple we picked, every bushel we sold, it put food on our table, it sent me and my siblings to school. It was everything. When I was just 7 years old, a skinny, curious kid named Alex, I was my father's shadow. My dad, we'll call him Elias, was a quiet man, solid, dependable. He loved that orchard, and I loved being out there with him. The smell of fresh earth, ripening apples in the late summer sun, it was my whole world. He'd take me along on his rounds, checking the trees, pruning branches, fixing irrigation. I loved being his little helper. But then, things started to change. Slowly at first, almost imperceptibly. It began with the findings. We'd stumble upon them while tending to the trees. Little things. Infant clothing. Not just any baby clothes, you understand. Tiny ones. Onesies, little bonnets, even tiny socks. And then small toys. Rattles, soft plush animals. Always abandoned. Always just there, amongst the rows of trees. My father, Elias, he was a practical man. His first thought? Poverty. Alex, he'd say, his voice low, some poor folks, maybe they're cutting through the orchard, trying to find a shortcut, maybe even taking a few apples to feed their families. He was a kind man, generous. He'd even tell his workers, if you see someone taking a few, just look the other way, let them be. He genuinely believed it was just desperate people. But the sheer number of these discoveries, it began to gnaw at him, and at me, even as a child. It was too frequent, far too frequent. And the items, they were always so small, always infant-sized. It wasn't just a stray glove or a dropped scarf. It was a pattern, a disturbing, unsettling pattern. It started to make his skin crawl, I could tell, and mine too. He started to suspect something else, something far more sinister, something that involved children. Within the vast, untamed, rarely visited sections of our own apple orchard. You have to understand the scale of it. Our orchard was enormous. Even with a full crew, it was impossible to patrol every single acre, every single row, every single day. There were these huge, overgrown sections, especially around the edges, where the apple trees thinned out and the wild woods started to creep in. We called them the wild zones. These areas, they could go unchecked for days, sometimes even a week or more. And that's where we found most of these things, always in the wild zones. Then came the night that snapped everything into sharp, terrifying focus. It was late, around 10:30 p.m. The house was quiet, my siblings were asleep. My parents were in the living room winding down. Suddenly, a sound. It cut through the quiet like a razor. A cry, a baby's cry. Not a muffled one, not a distant one. It was loud, piercing, desperate. It echoed from the orchard, no mistaking it. It was a baby. My father, Elias, he froze. I saw his eyes widen. That cry, it connected instantly, violently, with all those tiny clothes, all those abandoned toys. He knew something was happening, something bad. He didn't hesitate. He stood up, grabbed his old hunting shotgun from the cabinet by the door. It was well-oiled, always ready. And then he said, "Alex, stay here." But I couldn't. I don't know why, even now. Some primal fear, some irresistible pull to know. I pleaded, I begged, "Please, Dad, I need to go with you, please." He looked at me, just 7 years old, pleading with such intensity. And for some reason, he let me. I still don't know why he allowed his young son to accompany him into that darkness. It was a decision that would haunt him and me forever. We stepped out into the night. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke. The orchard was a black, silent expanse under a sliver of moon. But the cries, they were louder now, more urgent. My father, Elias, moved with an almost supernatural quietness. He knew every twist, every turn, every dip in that land, even in the pitch black. He moved through the rows of trees like a ghost, his hand tight on my arm, guiding me, keeping me low. We moved in silence, a terrifying, suffocating silence, broken only by the increasingly desperate cries of the baby. They were so close now, so close. And then we reached it, a clearing. It wasn't natural. It was a place where diseased trees had been cut down years ago, leaving an open, barren space in the middle of the dense orchard. And there, in the center of that clearing, under the faint, distant glow of what looked like the distant town lights, two figures, a man and a woman, kneeling. There was a cloth on the ground, a large one, red, a deep, unsettling shade of red, and at each corner, thick, black candles. Not small birthday candles. These were like the ones you see in old movies, for vigils, for something ancient. They flickered, casting grotesque, dancing shadows. And in the center of that red cloth, the baby, lying there, naked, its tiny body writhing, its mouth open in silent screams, its face contorted in agony. The cries, they were coming from it, raw, piercing. My father, Elias, clamped a hand over my mouth, not gently, hard, to silence me, to keep me from screaming. And I didn't. I couldn't. I was paralyzed. My blood ran cold. Then, the man, he raised his hand. He held something small, a blade. It glinted in the faint candlelight, and with a swift, horrifying motion, he cut the baby's throat. The cries, they stopped, instantly, abruptly, replaced by a sickening, wet gurgle. And then, the blood. It gushed out, a dark, black river against the red cloth. The woman quickly produced a plastic container, a large one, and they collected it, every drop, filling the container with the baby's lifeblood. I don't know how long we stood there. Minutes? Seconds? It felt like an eternity. My father's hand was still clamped over my mouth, my own hand gripping his arm so tightly I could feel the tendons. My heart was pounding like a drum against my ribs, so loud I was sure they could hear it. I was hyperventilating, struggling to breathe, but I couldn't make a sound. I just stared at the horror unfolding before us. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, my father began to pull me back, step by silent step, back into the shadows of the apple trees. His eyes were wide, just as wide as mine, staring at the scene until the last possible moment. Once we were deep enough into the rows of trees, he finally released his hand from my mouth. "Run," he whispered, his voice hoarse, barely audible. "Run, Alex, run home, don't look back." And we ran. We ran like hell. I ran faster than I ever thought possible, my small legs pumping, my father right behind me, his heavy boots thudding on the soft earth. The image burned into my mind, the red cloth, the black candles, the flowing blood, and the silence, the chilling, absolute silence that followed the baby's final scream. We burst through the back door, stumbling into the dim light of our kitchen. My father's face was ashen, his eyes wild. "Go to your room, Alex," he commanded, his voice strained. "Don't leave it. Don't make a sound. Don't come out until I tell you." I went. I crawled into my bed, pulled the covers over my head, and lay there, rigid with terror. Every shadow, every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside, I imagined them coming for us, coming to silence us, to take us. I didn't sleep a wink that night, not a single wink. The next morning, the sun rose, bright and seemingly innocent. My father, Elias, went straight to my mother. I heard their hushed, intense conversation from my room. He told her everything, every horrifying detail. Her gasps, her horrified whispers, they echoed through the house. After that, my father came to me. He sat on the edge of my bed, his face grim. "Alex," he said, his voice low, firm, "what we saw last night, you are never to speak of it, to anyone. Not your siblings, not your friends, not ever. Do you understand?" I nodded, trembling. There are things out there, Alex," he continued, his voice barely a whisper. "Things beyond our understanding. Dark forces, and they protect those who serve them. If we speak of this, if we try to interfere, they will come for us. They will come for our family. Do you understand?" I nodded again, tears welling in my eyes. I understood. I truly did. For years, that horrifying secret was a silent, suffocating presence in our home. Only my father, my mother, and I knew the absolute, terrifying truth. As my siblings grew older, into their teens, my parents eventually felt they had to share it. Not to scare them, but to warn them. To explain the unspoken rules, the boundaries. To make them understand why some parts of the orchard were simply off limits, forever. After that night, my father did what he could. He hired more people, not just for farming, but for security, especially at night, patrolling the perimeters. But as I said, the orchard was immense, and those wild zones, those dense, overgrown sections on the far edges, they remained unwatchable, too dangerous to traverse safely in the dark with all the wild animals, the snakes, the spiders, too easy to get lost. And even with the increased security, it continued. Less often, but it still happened. We'd find them, more tiny clothes, more infant toys, always in those remote, untamed areas. Every time, my father, my mother, and I, we just exchanged that look, that silent, knowing, terrified glance, a chilling acknowledgement of the unspeakable horror that was still lurking, still happening, right there on our land. In the very place that gave us life, darkness was taking it, and we were powerless to stop it. All right, so that's it for tonight's stories. Whew, even just reading them, it gets to me, especially that last one. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about what else is out there, what people are capable of, what secrets some places hold. If you actually made it all the way to the end of this video, seriously, thank you. Thank you so much for sticking around, for listening to these incredibly unsettling accounts. It really means a lot. And look, if any of this or anything you've ever experienced yourself has brought up a memory, if you have a true story, something supernatural or just plain unexplainable that happened to you or someone you know, and you feel like it needs to be told, please send it over. I genuinely love to hear it. You can send your story with all the details to scarearchive.cases@gmail.com. Your story might be the one we share next, helping others understand that they're not alone in what they've witnessed. Also, hey, if you enjoyed these tales, or if they just got under your skin, please do me a solid and hit that like button. It really helps the channel out, helps these stories reach more people who might need to hear them. And if you're new here and you like this kind of stuff, don't forget to subscribe. We're always diving into the dark, trying to figure out what's lurking in the shadows. And ring that little bell so you don't miss when I post new videos. So yeah, that's it for now. Until next time, stay safe out there, be careful, and try to get some sleep tonight. Seriously.